Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Relapse Tackle. In this video I'm going to go over some things with a mold that I've seen a lot of questions being asked about it. This particular mold does not come with any pull pins but uses the fiber weed guard. Do It molds, they recommend you pour the mold or pour the jig in the mold with your fiber weed guards in the mold. The problem is with that is most people that have made jigs know that these can't take that much heat, and to keep paint from getting all over these fiber weed guards is impossible if it's in there, because they do make a little heat resistant tube that you can put over top of them, but from what I've seen, I haven't used them before, but from what I've seen, your fiber weed guard still gets all frayed out at the top and doesn't look very nice, and I'm sure that affects how stiff the fibers are. So they might fold over a lot easier, making it a lot less weedless, and that's the purpose of the jig, is to be weedless. So the molds that use the 1/8 inch pull pins, I'm sure if you watch any of my videos you've seen me use these Teflon pins or PTFE pins. So these slide out of the mold or out of the jig really nice. Once you pour it, take the jig out, these slide right out of there. I fight the metal ones all the time, and I know there's people that have commented saying I've never had a problem with it in 25 years, whatever. But what I'm thinking is they probably let the jig cool down further than what I do, and the lead fully set up, and yeah, maybe the pins pull out a lot nicer, or they're lubing them up with something. I don't know, but this works really well. I'm going to continue to use these instead of the metal ones that come with those molds. But this mold, this weedless ball jig fiber guard mold, RVB-5-AF, it has the 1/32, 16th ounce, 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce, and a 3/8 ounce. They're using two different size fiber weed guards in this mold. Make sure before you open the packaging on these to inspect the molds, though. This one is damaged right there on both sides. This is below the plastic here, so I have not opened it. I didn't damage it, but had that damage been up in the ball or somewhere else, that might affect the way the jig looks. Also, make sure the mold closes tight and doesn't look like it's been dropped. The handles aren't broke or anything, because if it's broken, send it back to whoever you got it from and have them replace it, because we don't want to spend money on something and then open it up and then go, oh crap, it's damaged. So this uses the 16th inch fiber weed guard and the 5/64. So they recommend pouring the jig with these inside there. That's crazy. So I was talking to my friend who works for Grainger, and he found some PTFE material. So it is a so this stuff right here. So it's a rope or a cord. They're calling it a cord. This is 10 foot long, and it costs $7.66. The other size, so the larger one, is $12.29, and I believe it was also 10 foot. So I wrote on there the cost and size and stuff. So, and they go up to 500 degrees, and I believe that's what these ones are rated for, is 500 degrees also. The melting point of lead is a little over 600 degrees. So you'd think that they would melt a little bit. The white one doesn't melt, so I have yet to use these. We're going to find out how well this works with this stuff, but I have a feeling that it's gonna pour just fine. We're gonna have no issues because the lead cools down rapidly, and unless you're overworking the mold and the mold is getting extremely hot, this stuff shouldn't melt in the mold. And also, if that were the case, these would take a lot less heat than the PTFE, and these would melt inside the lead jig and burn off, or, you know, fray out and look terrible. So what I'll do is I'll heat up the Lee pot and then cut some of these to length. And to cut them, all you need is, you don't want to use a side cutter or anything like that. You're going to want to use, I got these razor blades in this box here. Slide one of them out. Careful not to cut yourself. And they cut really nice. I don't know if you can see that on the bench, but I'm just laying it there and you can hear it push down the sharp part of the blade, and it cuts a nice edge on there. I would not use a side cutter because it's going to smash and it's not going to be a nice clean cut. So I'll cut some more of these up closer to show how easy it is to cut. You don't need them to be as long as the eighth inch ones. You can go shorter yet, that's fine. And then if you're adding any ingots to your Lee pot, do it when it's cold. Don't drop them in there. If it's running a little low, I'm going to check that one before I heat it up. And I always check it before I heat it up. And if it runs low, I'll unplug it, let it cool down, and then add ingots. Because if there's any moisture in those ingots and I drop it in that pot and it just sinks down below the surface, and then the moisture tries to escape, it's going to blow up, and then chunks of lead are going to go flying everywhere, and we don't want that. So always make sure it's cool before you put any ingots in there. Just another helpful tip. Alright, so let's get started by warming up the mold a little bit. I'm doing a voiceover during this part of the video because my exhaust fan and everything is so loud. Nobody can really hear what I'm saying, and it's just kind of annoying when I drop stuff on the stainless bench and stuff. You can't hear me. So these ones poured pretty well, but there's no hooks or anything in there. We're just trying to warm the mold up a little bit. I did have a few issues with the jigs forming and stuff, and also with one of the pins that I cut falling out. But in the video, if you watch it, I'll show how I got past those issues and started pouring decent jigs. So the Lee pot was a little drippy during this session, and part of that is I didn't really mess around with cooling it down and getting the temp set right, and there might be a little bit of junk in the pour spout. So I'm dumping these back into my little cast iron little pot to catch drips, and I don't like tossing them back into the Lee pot because it could splatter and kind of knock or make the lead fly up and out of the pot. This won't be a giveaway in this video, but I'm thinking doing some painting some of these jigs, and then maybe doing a giveaway with some of these weedless jigs. In the next video, painting them up and then maybe doing that giveaway. We'll see. So here I am placing all of the stuff in the mold. It's starting to warm up a little bit. The mold could have been much hotter by leaving it sit on top of the leaf pot, and if you do that, be sure that the handles are away from the top part of it, or they can burn. The handles are wood on these do-it molds. And also they recommend the what is it? They recommend the 570 or 575 jig hooks. They're Eagle Claw. I was actually using owner hooks instead of the Eagle Claw, and Mustad sickle hook for the 16th ounce. That one I used the sickle hook, and then the 1/8, 1/4, and 3/8 I was using owner hooks. And I can leave all of the links in the description, or just what sizes and what the hook numbers were. So I got everything placed in there. And then close it up. I was trying to make sure that everything was seated tight to the hooks, and that did work. Everything was, all of the pins that I put in there were slid down to the hook. And then put it back up here to warm it up a little more. I should have left it sit there a little longer, but trying to hurry up. And then one of the pins fell out, so that was the smallest pin that I made. And I didn't pour all 5 sizes. I did not have, or don't have, any number 6 hooks for the 1/32, but the smallest pin, so it would have been for that, for the 16th ounce, was sliding out of the mold, and there it dropped out again. So here I was, you know, getting frustrated with it, but instead of getting frustrated with it, you know, come up with a solution to the problem. I tried cutting a longer one, thinking that maybe if it was up against that next hook that it would stop it from falling out, and it still drops out even with it cut longer. So there's where I cut the longer one to go up against the hook next to it. Like I said, that did not work, but I did come up with another solution. So this video is going to be a little long, but I know a lot of people have had so many questions about this mold that I really wanted to kind of get some solutions out there for this particular mold, because of the mold not coming with the pole pins and everything else. So you can see the longer one still drops out. So here's where I'm got the gears turning in my head, and there, yep, I just got an idea. So just had to go over to my shelf and grab this plumber's putty. So this stuff is getting kind of old. It's kind of dried out. I'll probably have to buy some new stuff. I've had this stuff for probably 6 years or so, and I always close it back up, and I know the lid doesn't seal super tight, so it's just one of those products that dries out. But I just need a small piece of it to put in that channel to keep that pull pin from dropping out of place. So here I am. I was going to smush it down real hard, but I wanted to double check, make sure my hook wasn't slid over, and it was. So if I would have just pinched this mold down even by hand, I would have damaged the mold just a little bit, because these are sand casted aluminum. They're pretty soft. So now I'm going to cut my pull pin to length so that it touches that piece of plumber's putty and also touches the corner of the hook. Always make sure that the pull pins are in all the way up, tight up against the hook. When you pour them, I like to see a small section of the hook visible through the hole, because then you know that fiber weed guard is going to be all the way in as far as it can go. And then when you glue the fiber weed guards in, you know that they're in all the way. And you can cut them to whatever length you want after they're glued in. If you wanted to shorten them up or put a little bit of an angle to your fiber weed guard. There you go. That one did not pour very well. The mold still is not up to temp, and I'm not letting the hook sit in there long enough to get preheated. But this is how easy this stuff slides out of there. And it doesn't melt, just like the Teflon pins that you buy, which is also a PTFE. Teflon is just a brand. So there you have it again. That one poured nicely. And that slides right out of there. Got a nice hole, and I can see the hook in there. It's kind of hard to show on camera because the holes are so small. I mean, you got a 5/64 and a 1/16 inch holes, so they're pretty tiny. But I did have issues with a few of them pouring decent and actually filling that bait keeper barb all the way. And I tried opening up the vents a little bit on this one, and that didn't help. Some molds don't come with vents, and you could add vents to them just using a razor blade very carefully, or a small flat file. Just use the edge of the one flat side, but be careful so that you don't damage the mold. So now my pins are staying in place. They're not sliding on me, which is good. Once again, I apologize for this video being so darn long, but like I said, with all the people that have had problems with the mold and having to pour, see, these two are not filling all the way on the 3/8 or the quarter, and usually the larger sizes you have less issues with them filling up all the way. So I'm kind of blown away that those were the ones that were having issues, because usually that has a little bit more room around the hook going down the shank, so that lead can get down there faster and doesn't cool as much. But on this mold, for some reason, they would not fill. It wouldn't fill consistently anyway. I get one every now and then that would fill all the way, and then you're having to remelt hooks, or remelt the lead off the hooks. And there's quite a few of them. It slows you down. I don't like that. So come up with another solution that's been been used quite a bit on a lot of my molds and a lot of other people's molds, but I don't like screwing around and not having stuff fill, so put some dry graphite on this mold. Careful when you're handling a mold like I am right now, because this one was actually pretty warm, but I've been around welding and fabricating for so long that I really don't feel too much. Not saying it's a good idea, but I've occasionally, without thinking, grabbed a pizza out of the oven, put it on top of the oven, and went, oh, I didn't have my gloves on or oven mitt. So after putting the dry graphite on, starting to pour all the way. So a lot less screwing around. I also, with only the 3/8, I actually put that spout right down inside the gate of the mold. That's the only one that I had to do that with on this mold. Just to force that lead in there much faster and not cool down at all. And you know, every mold is a little different, and I could have had the lead pot turned up even higher, but I didn't want to have it drip even more, so I had it actually set at just 3. If I would have had it at 4 or 5, the lead pot might have dripped more, which would have been fine because I have that catch below it, and it may have poured nicer into the mold. One thing I do like to mention though is if that lead is turning purple and blue on the top, you'll end up getting a lot of impurities in it because it's rapidly oxidizing and the lead is too hot. And then you also want to keep that lead pot about half full. You don't want to overfill it. You don't want to have it full. You want it about half full. And don't run them completely empty either, because all of that impurities that are on the top of the lead floating there will go down into the pour spout and make it drip a lot worse. So here I'm showing how I clip this off. I don't take it off in one big cut. You know, take a couple small cuts, and then I'm scraping the nose so I'm not making a bunch of dust. Lead particulates are nothing you really want to mess with or ingest. And then here I'm showing the fiber weed guard for this size. I'm not gluing it in right now. I'm just showing you that they do fit inside the lid without drilling them out or anything, so that the pull pins that I made are the right size. If you weren't going to paint them or powder coat them, pouring with the fiber weed guards inside them would be fine. If it was just going to be a lead jig, then it would eliminate having to mess around with the pull pins. But most people want to powder paint them, or even using the Stardust powder paint. You don't want to have the fiber weed guards in when you're painting them, because of the heat. It will ruin the fiber weed guards or weaken them. So airbrushing them, I guess you could probably pour with the fiber weed guard in and then mask it off, and then go ahead and paint them however you wish. But to powder paint them, it's a lot easier without anything in there. Sorry, my friend is messaging me. I think he likes the outboard that he's buying off of me. A couple ba-ding, ba-ding. Anyways, thanks again for watching and all your guys' support. Please give the video a like, share it with your friends, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that bell for more videos. And like I said, the giveaway will probably be on the next video when I powder paint some of these jigs. It'll be a much shorter video, and I'll explain everything in that video on how to enter the giveaway. go. One more nice pour. I wish I would have had the number 6 hooks for the last.